40k is now mainstream. I think previously you could have asked the question, is it mainstream or is it still niche? I think at this point we have crossed the Rubicon and 40k is now mainstream. When you have got programs like South Park making joke episodes about you, when you have got high profile celebrities like Henry Cavill openly posting and talking about their fanboyness for 40k, and when you've got like big TV programs like Amazon, and when you've got games like Space Marine 2, which are one of the most successful games of the year, I think at this point we have to say that 40k is mainstream. Now, if we need to define what mainstream is, I guess we could define it as, if someone asks you, what do you do for a hobby, and you say 40k, then they go, oh, I know what that is. Whereas in the past, if someone asked you, oh, what's that? What's that thing you're talking about? Or what do you do for fun? And you say, oh, I play Warhammer 40k. They go, what's that? And now, now pretty much you ask anyone, pretty much anyone that you know, and there's more often than not everyone, but more often than not, they'll go, I get that now. So 40k is mainstream, and that's our very rough sort of, not particularly scientific definition of what is it. If the majority of people you talk to understand what the hell you're on about, are aware of it. Now, the big question is, if we now readily accept that 40k is now mainstream, what are the pros and cons of this? And generally speaking, do people like the fact that 40k is now more mainstream, or do people dislike the fact that 40k is now more mainstream? Now, those sort of latter questions are somewhat easy to answer, because during the stream we've been running a poll, and we've got 347 votes in this poll over 3 hours, which is pretty good. So big thank you to everyone that has voted in the poll, and we're currently we've got 4 options in the poll. Do you like 40k is now mainstream? Option number 1, more, I love it. So you absolutely love that it's now mainstream. Option number 2, I quite like it. Option number 3, not a fan. And option number 4, I fucking hate it. Now, if we combine the top, so I love it is 29%, I quite like it is 43%, not a fan 60%, hate it 11%. Now, if we combine the positive and negative categories, we can see that it's good to have a little bit of nuance, but combining them gives us the overall picture. We can see that about 72% of people think that they like that 40k is now not so niche. And about 28%, 27%, 28% of people, there might be like a rogue 1% because of the vagaries of YouTube polling and it rounding up and rounding down certain things. But about 27, 28% of people say they don't like it. So overall, it would seem like the vast majority of people that have, the vast majority of people in this community do like that the game is becoming more and more popular and becoming more and more mainstream. I'm going to say mainstream enough times, I'm going to get fucking sick of saying the word, boys. It's going to not sound like a real word. Now, of course, there's one thing that you can be certain of in life: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So I'm sure if we put this poll maybe in if we phrase the question a bit differently, or if we put the poll in another community, maybe we would get a different response. But I think there's enough data here to at least tentatively say that not everyone hates it, even though you might hear a lot of people going on about how 40k should be gate kept and how it's better when it's niche and that we shouldn't let everyone into the hobby and all this kind of stuff. And that might be, you might feel like that's what a lot of people say, and that almost feels like the majority of what you hear. It would appear that that is not the majority. That's one thing that one conclusion that we can possibly draw. Okay, whether you agree with it or not, that's one possible conclusion that we can draw from this poll. Now, I guess it comes back to those other questions then. What are the pros and cons? Because for people to enjoy it, there must be some pros. And for people to hate it, there must be some cons, right? So, my understanding, based on what we've talked about today, and I'm really sort of echoing what I've picked up from chat here, and then I can throw a little bit of my own thoughts in about it at the end. People like the reason the pros of 40k being more popular is that it's easier to get a game. Like just the fundamental that's not even a word, fundamental practical aspects of playing a game of Warhammer 40k, it's easier to get one. It's especially if you compare that to something like bot action, where sometimes you can want to play bot action as much as you want, but there's just not a game group near you, right? But with 40k, by and large, even in America, where sometimes you might have to travel for drive for an hour or two, you'll find a game group within traveling distance to play 40k with. Okay, so you'll find one of the pros is it's now easier than ever to get a game. I guess one of the other pros is that it no longer feels awkward talking about Warhammer. You no longer get that. What's that? No, I'm not interested in that. And when you say, you don't, that was the reaction that I've had whenever I've talked about Warhammer 40k for 20 plus years.
It is the Bane Blade!
You don't get that reaction anymore. Now, what you get is, oh yeah, Warhammer, yeah, the thing with the dice, right? Oh yeah. And it's not like they're like, oh, they're not suddenly going to get on their knees and like fillet you. But they're not suddenly like, people aren't suddenly like, ugh, like you're too nerdy for me anymore. People are like, oh yeah, like they're aware of it, they're accepting of it, like they're like they don't give a shit, they're okay, or they're actively positive about it. So that's a big pro. It's nice. It's nice, having that sort of positive reaction when you talk to someone about or you mention a hobby or something you're interested in. And another big pro is, as 40k becomes more mainstream, many of the, and this is something I'm injecting a little bit of my own feeling here. There are things that have been coming out recently with 40k, like Space Marine 2, which I only dreamt of as a kid. And the animations that we have had with things like Astartes and stuff are things that I used to wish someone would make this. And now it exists. When I was a kid growing up, if I wanted to role play as a Space Marine in a video game, I'd have to basically play Halo and pretend that I was a Space Marine and that the Marines were guardsmen and that the Covenant were like Tau or someone that I was fighting. Like that's what I had to do. Because there wasn't a Warhammer 40k game. There wasn't. If I wanted to, the only Warhammer 40k game out there was kind of like was Dawn of War, which was good, don't get me wrong. It's a good game. But yeah, I used to be like, I wish there was a total war game for Warhammer. I mean, it's not 40k, but it's in the sort of similar ballpark. And it's like, now there's a total, I mean, if you had told me 20 years ago that there would be a Warhammer Total War, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't. And so there are lots. So the main positives is not only is it good on a practical level, not only is it sort of does it feel good on like a social acceptance level, but also we're getting a lot of what you could call like fantasies or dreams. Not fantasies in like a dirty way, but like actual like daydreaming and fantasies and like wishes and hopes actually being manifested and coming into existence. And that's really cool. But what are the cons? The biggest con that has been expressed by the community tonight has been a concern about the game being simplified. Let's work through some of the like. Let's work through like the game, like we did with the first one. We had gameplay, and then we had sort of social, and then we had like some other cool shit that's come out of it. So what's the cons from a gameplay point of view? Cons is that as GW wants to make the game, as GW wants to have more and more people not only become aware of 40k, the universe, the IP, they want to try and feed those people into the main game. So they've got Space Marine, which feeds into the board game, the Space Marine board game, which then feeds into the main game. As they try and make it more, as they try and make that pipeline more and more easy, more and more effective, they end up making the game. They end up oversimplifying it, and it almost becomes. It loses a lot of nuance and loses a lot of flavor, and becomes a little boring. Essentially, gotta dumb it down. Yeah, they end up dumbing the game down too much, and then another sort of con in that respect, and is that they not only dumb down the game, but they dumb down the setting, the lore. We've talked about some pretty wacky lore tonight. I never knew that there was an entire chapter of Space Marines that went around, killed basically the entire population of a planet apart from the women aged between 12 and 20, and then basically went on a full nut-busting rampage. Okay, there is an official chapter that I am now... That official chapter that I now call the Nutbusters. Okay? And that's frankly bad lore. But people, but there's a dumbing, there's a sanitizing, the 11th Infantry Nutbusters, exactly. There's a sanitizing of the setting where GW... You know, maybe that's the kind of lore that we want to get rid of. You know, because it's just edgy for the sake of being edgy. But then you've got other examples where maybe GW tries to make it more mainstream and appealing to a more wider audience by changing lore like the female custodies. Which a lot of people would say is a prime example of Games Workshop being like, we're trying to make it appeal on a broader spectrum. We've talked a lot about female custodians, like more than I ever have normally done, and I think on a little side note, the general feeling that I have on that is I don't give a shit about female custodians. I've always had that that sort of approach. I've always had that stance, but I totally do think that the way they introduced it was gash, and they could have absolutely introduced it in a much better way. I think that's just... I'm not going to go full tinfoil hat because I don't know enough about it. But I think, basically, I don't care about female custodians, but I do think that people have a point when they say it was just ham-fisted in. Yeah, I can definitely see that. But a lot of people will see GW as doing that because they're trying to sanitize the game to make it appeal on a broad spectrum. And if a lot of people see that as a con, because for a lot of people the appeal of 40k is that it is fucking grim dark, and if you take that away, then it's not even 40k anymore. And we've drawn a few analogies, like how Star Wars doesn't really feel like Star Wars anymore, because Star Wars fundamentally was always good versus bad. You have the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force. It's pretty straightforward stuff, and that there's the story of redemption. And Star Wars now, who even knows anymore, right? And you can likewise with Lord of the Rings, we use that as an example where who even knows who the bad guys are anymore? Orcs have got you're meant to be sympathetic to the orcs and all that kind of stuff. You could argue it's nuance and whatnot, and like I said, it's not really the topic for today, but it's an example that some people have pointed to. Remember, we're sort of summarizing what we've talked about with chat. It's an example of some people, of what people have pointed to, saying that if you dumb down your lore, or if you don't respect your lore, then you lose what makes that setting unique. So that's a big con, that 40k stops feeling like 40k. And then I guess that last point it sort of links into a little bit what we've talked about, with some of the extra bits. That last bit talked about not only the gameplay, but also talked about the lore, also talked about the setting and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So long story short, but overall, it seems like most people are happy to take. Most people are happy to take the fumbling of the lore if it means that 40k is more popular and they get to play more games. And so you could say, and I'm just coming up with this now, off the top of my head, this could be totally bollocks. You could say that it seems like more people care about playing 40k than about reading about 40k. Although that's a hot take that I reckon a lot of people disagree with. But that's okay. This is just like my opinion. And as I've always said, you guys, it's just like my opinion, man. Fully respect anyone that wants to disagree with me. And if you disagree with me passionately, I have no issue with you doing that. I've got a thick skin, boys. You can tear me a new one. I don't mind. In fact, I encourage it. Vigorous Discord. You can be as rude as you like to me. I've always said that. Obviously, don't say anything that's going to get you banned by YouTube in the comment section. But be polite to each other. But yeah. But yeah. So if I was to give my personal opinion on all this, because right now, what I've really, up until this point, what I have been echoing on about, what I've been harping on about, is basically echoing the sentiments that have come from the community over the last 3 hours of doing this live stream. Okay? So I'll come down off the fence. I'm gonna just wedge that fence out from underneath my dummy thick ass cheeks from doing all the Giga Chads, and pull a few fucking splinters out. And then I'll give you my take. All right. I've made no bones about what kind of 40k person I am. I am not a lore guy. At one point, I was probably a bit more of a lore guy, but I'm not a lore guy. I wouldn't say I totally don't care about the lore. Like, I like the setting, I like the Imperial Guard, I fucking love the Imperial Guard, I love the Guard lore and everything. But I am a player first and foremost. Pretty much always have been. Sometimes I've been 50-50 split, but I've pretty much always been a player first and foremost. I like playing competitively. I am the meta chasing piece of shit that so many of you vilify and hate. Okay? I am that. Now, I do that within the confines of my own faction. Not even that's entirely true anymore. Fuck it. I play like Death Guard and shit now, man. I'm a goddamn whore. I'm a goddamn floozy. Okay? So for me, I like that 40k is becoming more popular. Because it means I can play the game a lot more. And it means I can literally go to a tournament every couple of weeks. I can go to a tournament every single weekend and not have to drive further than like 40 minutes. A tournament, let alone a fucking game, guys. There's either one at Just Play, there's either one at Element Games, or there's one at a dozen other game clubs that are near me. So I'm a dirty whacker, sweaty, meta-chasing piece of shit. And so I like the fact that the game is more popular because it means I get to play the game more. All right? And I haven't read any of the lore since they blew up Cadia. I just like, I mean, I am the guard. I'm like the guard guy. Like, I don't like saying that because it feels a bit arrogant, all right? But, you know, I like the guard, okay? I fucking love the guard. It's my main faction, all right? I haven't read the fucking Gaunt's Ghost series. Like, I've got like halfway through them. Like, the quintessential guard fucking, like, series. I got up to, the one with the haunted house. Thought it was a bit shit. Don't spoil it though. I do plan on reading it one day. Caiaphas Cain. Got up to the one when he's on the ship with the Reclaimers. Like the prequel one. Thought it was a bit shit. Like I only really like the first sort of 3 Caiaphas Cain books when it's like the one. The first 4. I like the one with on Gravelax. I like the one on the one with the Talan when it's like the half night world, half desert world. There's one in between the two which I like, and I like the Orc one, and that's basically, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So like after that, they're a bit shit. So I'm a lore guy. I'm not a lore guy. So personally, I like the game that's more mainstream because I like playing the game. And so the more I can play the game, the better. And so for me, 40k going mainstream, the only concern I really have is the rules maybe getting a little bit over simplified. But even then, if you look at 10th edition doesn't have a problem with the rules being oversimplified. 10th edition has a problem with the rules starting off being oversimplified and them constantly fucking tweaking and changing them and basically having to hot fix it all the time. Really, 40k is not a simple game system. Because between the core rules and then the advanced rules, aka the rules commentary, you've got a very complicated game system there. Complicated enough to keep it interesting. A little bit clunky. It could do with being less. It could do with just being getting into the action a bit better. But that's about it. Yeah. And there was one other point I was going to try and make, but I've kind of forgotten it now. Oh yeah. And one other thing, like, of course, you know, let's throw all of our cards on the table here. Of course, I like 40k is getting more mainstream. My fucking job is talking about Warhammer 40k and other tabletop games. The more that tabletop gaming as a whole becomes more popular, the more that 40k becomes more popular, the better it is for me on a professional level. It's you know that's I've got skin in the game, boys. So of course the better it is. And there's no point in trying to like act holier than thou about that kind of shit. Like, you guys, you know, it's that let's be honest with each other here. Let's be honest. Yeah, I think Steve Reisman, even if it's bad, like more commentary. Yeah, exactly. Although I actually don't agree with that. I would always rather. I don't like talking about 40k in a negative way. Some people think I like to shit on 40k. I don't. I love 40k. I shit on GW. There's a difference. And so I don't always shit on GW. I sometimes praise them greatly. Like, recent example of me praising them, I fucking love those. I don't like Warhammer Plus, but the Warhammer Plus exclusive miniatures, they've been knocking those out of the park. Yeah. I like talking about 40k positively. And I'd always rather talk about it positively. I don't like talking about it negatively. Yeah. Basically, there are a number of reasons. 40k is now mainstream. Overall, it seems like people are happy with that. I am personally happy with that. But if you're not happy with that, that's okay. You don't have to agree with everyone. You don't have to. You are absolutely entitled to your opinion, and you probably and the opinions that you have are probably got some very good valid reasons backing them up. Although there will always, one thing I would say, will always be people that don't like change in any format whatsoever. Any format whatsoever. Because there's one thing that wargamers complain about is that they don't like change. And if there's one thing more, the only thing that wargamers complain about more than change is a lack of change. But all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in chat if you're joining us live, or of course in the comment section if you are watching this post live, or in what is very likely to be a stream highlight. There you go. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.